New York Times editorial board is out with a new series now tracking 12 categories of democratic erosion in the United States. That's small d democratic, highlighting the worrisome steps it says President Trump has taken toward undermining American democracy. Measuring on a scale from 0 to 10, with 0 representing a strong, though imperfect democracy, and 10 representing a true autocracy, the board has moved one category, at least, manipulating the law to stay in power, up to level 3. The Times editorial board explains Trump has pushed Republican-led states to redraw congressional maps, back legislation that could restrict voting, and raise questions about whether legitimate ballots could be rejected. Constitutional scholars and democracy experts tell the Times they worry about possible voter intimidation and efforts to block certification of election results, adding Trump's gerrymandering campaign has likely shifted the House competition at least 2.5 percentage points toward Republicans. With the president already taking steps like this for the midterm elections, the Times warns if Trump succeeds in perverting the results, as they write, he could be emboldened to take similar steps in 2028. Joe?
All right, let's bring in right now the author and staff writer for The Atlantic, Anne Applebaum, and also former host of Hardball, Chris Matthews. Anne, you've written about this repeatedly, 2 classic books that have the timing of which could not have been better to help us help us understand what's going on in the United States. Talk about what the Times is doing with their editorial board pieces, and also where you see the pendulum swinging. Yesterday, I just as a footnote, I've got to say David Rode added actually cautious optimism on some fronts because the courts have been standing up against some of these election year shenanigans by Trump.
So first of all, I'm really glad you're talking about this because it's still undercovered as a subject, because people imagine that elections are canceled because something blows up and the results are blocked and everybody cheats and so on. But actually, in quite a lot of declining democracies, elections are massaged and manipulated rather than canceled. And you can see the Trump administration attempting to do this in real time right now. And some of the tactics they're borrowing from states. We have, of course, in the United States, we have state level issues like this, and some of them they're borrowing from foreign countries. I mean, I think the 2 that worry me the most, one is gerrymandering, which you mentioned, because if you think about it, trying to carve out electoral districts so that one party will win is about the most undemocratic thing that you can do. And at the state level, we've seen that it gets elected people to state legislatures who don't owe anything to the people. They can be as crazy as they want. They only have to appeal to a small number of partisan voters. Sometimes they get involved with local businesses. They don't really have to care what people think of them because they're going to be automatically reelected. And of course, we have a version of that in Congress as well. And the second thing is you can also see the Trump administration beginning to kind of prepare a narrative. State election officials have been getting letters from the Department of Justice warning them of criminal consequences if too many illegals vote in the election. As we know, illegals almost never vote. There's literally, tiny percentages of people who've even tried. And you can see them preparing to create a situation of chaos or crisis after the election and saying, we told you this was going to happen.
Could I interrupt you for 1 second? Could you explain this? Because it draws a perfect parallel with what you wrote in Twilight of Democracy, where Orban kept talking about the Muslim invaders, and then everybody looked around and they said, wait a second, there are no Muslims here. What are we going to do? Let's go after LGBTQ, right? So they create a boogeyman that does not exist, but that actually worked for a while till people realized that the Muslims weren't flooding in to Hungary. You're saying that same thing is happening here with them saying, oh, my God, illegals are voting. Talk about that and the parallels with Orban.
It is. You're right. It's exactly the same technique. So you scream about a problem that doesn't exist. And in this case, there are illegal aliens living in the United States, but there's almost no evidence anywhere in any state of them actually voting. Because if you think about it, if you were illegal, why would you even try to vote? And for all kinds of reasons, the states all have systems where they can check people's citizenship. It's just not true. But they're trying to create this boogeyman, illegals are voting, so that if they lose an election in Georgia or if they lose an election in North Carolina, they can say, oh, it's because of the illegals voting, and maybe they'll try to seize voting machines or reverse the results. They've already done. They've already seized voting machines in Georgia and Fulton County in a kind of fake attempt to relitigate the 2020 election. But you're right. It's distracting people with a fake threat. Here is a threat you need to be worried about. And of course, if millions of illegal citizens were voting, we should be worried. But it's not true. But they repeat it as if it were true. And again, this is exactly what Viktor Orban did. You're right, and not only him. And then you have the consequences, which is that they are then able to challenge the system itself.
So, Chris Matthews, let's get your take on this, because it seems to me that it's a two-part play. There's the way the administration could try to meddle with voting beforehand, whether that's putting ICE agents on the streets or the National Guard or other intimidation tactics, whether of voters themselves or, as Ann noted, potentially local officials. And then part two is what happens afterwards, that if the results they don't like, they just won't accept them. And they've been trying to cast doubt ahead of time. So at least a portion of the people might think, well, this is illegitimate, and then we're in a real constitutional crisis.
Yeah, John, I think a couple of things. I think in macro terms about this election, I think 26, this November is going to be a significant election. I look at the House. I still think it's going to be big numbers. I don't agree with Charlie Cook around 15. I think it's about 30. I think it's a sweeping election potentially. Right now, we look at the United States Senate. That is also in play now. If you look at Maine, if you look at North Carolina, certainly in Ohio, they're in the win column for the Democrats, it looks like. If you look at Iowa, you look at Texas and Alaska, it looks like they are possible wins. Possible losers in the Senate, Michigan, of course. And I also think in New Hampshire with Sununu running, John Sununu, very popular name right now in New Hampshire. I think it's going to be money. They've got a huge amount of money, Musk money, all kinds of Republican money. They have a great opportunity for a national campaign. And this is classic. Karl Rove talked about we had a debate recently. And I have to tell you, Joe knows this, in the last minute, in an election, they will pull out somebody from West Palm Beach somewhere and say he's a member of Congress who's going after pages in the U.S. Congress. And they'll get a story like that and turn it into a major national story like Willie Horton. I think they're quite capable of that. I think they can go after the Democrat communists, as they call them, DSA people. They're going to generalize the Democratic Party as being part of that. Trump's already doing it. I think they got a lot of money. And they got a good, bad story to sell for the American middle. And I think they're going to do that. It's not tricky stuff. They got secretaries of state are not going to bow down and take this crap from this administration and this political party. I think they're going to hold fast, like Ravensburger down in Georgia. They're going to fight for their jobs, which is really giving honest results of elections. So, and the only problem we've got with the immigration issue is, of course, what happened in New Jersey, which is a complete foul up there in their system of registering voters and putting people online to vote who shouldn't have been voting and shouldn't have voted. They shouldn't have voted, but they're not here in the country illegally. But I really think it's going to be macro numbers. We're going to get election night. We're going to cover it. It's going to be like a big story, what's going on. It's going to be surprises in the United States Senate. Probably the Democrats can very possibly win the Senate as they win the House. That's the big story. The granular stuff about redistricting in Texas and in California, excuse me, that's too granular. That's not the way elections move. They're going to move because of a massive American determination that Donald Trump should not be president, that this war should not have been fought, and it's Donald Trump's war. I want to give him a name? How about Trump's war in Iran? How about give it to him? Give it to him and Bibi. And I think that's what the Democrats should do. I wish the Democrats would come alive and also have their surprise, because I'm sure the Republicans are going to have a surprise this October. It's going to be something big and nasty about the Democrats.